Hello there, and we're back for more civics today. Last time we talked a little bit about the 2020 election, and today we're going to go back to the Supreme Court cases we've been talking about for the last couple of videos. This is going to be our third Supreme Court case video. That's a mouthful. I should try saying that a couple times fast. And today we're going to talk about two more cases that had really large impacts on American government and American history. The first case we're going to talk about is the Brown versus Board of Education case, which occurred in 1954 and had really big implications about civil rights and the Equal Protection Clause. Basically, what happened is this father, whose last name was Brown, wanted to enroll his daughter in a school that was really close to him. It was like down the street almost, down in the South. In Kansas, and the school district said, no, we're not letting you go there. That's a white school. Instead, we're going to make you bus all the way to the black school across town. This dad sued the Board of Education in his hometown, said this was not okay. I should be able to send my daughter to school wherever I want. And he won. And so the Supreme Court ruled that separate but equal educational institutions were not constitutional, even if they were equal. We should not have to separate people based on their skin color or their gender or whatever. And that's due to the Equal Protection Clause in the Constitution, added in the 14th Amendment. And so because of that, schools were forced to desegregate in the South. And there's a lot of issues that went on with that, right? The National Guard had to be called in. The military had to be deployed to certain cities to make sure that these students were safe. There were protests and just mean and awful things said about these children, but they had to desegregate the schools. Now, has that actually lasted over the course of the last 50 years? No. There are lots of school districts that are incredibly segregated in this country, and that still is an issue. One of those cities that is very segregated in its school districts is Milwaukee, which is in the state I live in. It's one of the most segregated cities in America, and it's in the north. So clearly it doesn't necessarily matter where you are geographically in the United States, that school segregation still happens, even if it's not necessarily intentional. It's still segregation. So not great. The other case we wanted to talk about today is Gideon versus Wainwright. And this case occurred in 1963, and it's all about having representation in court. So basically, what happened was this guy got into trouble, some legal trouble, and he was in Florida. And he was like, well, I need a lawyer. I can't afford one. And the state government said, well, we only have to provide one for you if you're facing a capital offense based on Florida state law. So we don't have to get you a lawyer in your case. The case did end up going all the way to the Supreme Court. And basically what the court said was that state and federal governments, because up to this point, federal governments had to provide you with some sort of representation, but state governments did not. They basically said that the state governments now also must comply with this constitutional guarantee that you can be represented in court. And so state courts now had to provide lawyers to defendants who could not afford one. Now, this was a really big deal because up until that point, public defenders weren't really that popular of a thing. They weren't around that often. And now that it was mandatory that every person get at least offered the opportunity to have legal defense at the state's expense, public defenders became a huge part of our legal system. And these are lawyers who work for the state, and they defend people who can't afford to defend themselves in court. So this need for public defenders has grown since then. And there's actually still a need for public defenders. They're very overworked, and they often need help. So if you are thinking about becoming a lawyer, public defender, great service to people who really need your help. Now, the Supreme Court used the Fifth and Sixth Amendment to justify this ruling, saying that under these two amendments, if the federal government has to provide representation in court, the state governments do too, because federal law also applies to states. And so that's what Gideon versus Wainwright did. So, two very important cases today. The first one being Brown versus Board of Education. Separate but equal is not okay. Got to desegregate the schools. Gideon versus Wainwright. Everybody gets a lawyer, regardless of their ability to pay. Mandated. Thank you so much for watching our third Supreme Court case video. Next time we'll have 2 more Supreme Court cases, and then we'll only have 2 more of these videos left, and we'll get back to some other things that aren't just Supreme Court cases. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're learning something. Have a great day.